Good afternoon. It's Robert Young. It's Thursday afternoon, the 25th, around 3:15, and I want to bring to your attention something that occurred this morning or overnight about one of our positions, Consolidated Communications. I want to bring you up to speed on what's going on. More importantly, I want to give you a quick little background and then why we got into it and what we're looking at going forward. So, all right, here we go. It's actually brought to my attention by one of my analysts who's up in Boston. He was a corporate bankruptcy attorney for a decade. He has a JD and MBA from Harvard. He thoroughly researches positions that we're in. He looks at those companies that have gotten a lot of debt load or high debt load or have gone through bankruptcy and restructuring. And then he looks to see what's the potential for them coming out of it. And based on his experience as a corporate attorney, he actually saw several things had to be in place for companies to come out and get a much higher return. So Consolidated Communications was one of the companies he brought to my attention a few months ago. Outstanding company. Been around since the 1800s. They supply cable, cloud, internet. They're think of Comcast, but for rural areas of the country. They're in 23 states. They've been expanding by purchasing other companies. And that's actually what happened to them last year. They purchased another company, Fortress. They consolidated their holdings, had a bit of a debt load, so they locked in their interest rate they were going to pay for 3 years, which is unheard of in the corporate world. Usually those debts are renewable more frequently than 3 years. But more importantly, their revenues kept increasing, and they kept increasing their dividend, which is, of course, their way of giving back to the shareholders. They've been increasing that dividend every year since 2008. So even during the recession, they were increasing their dividend because they were growing and they run their company well. They have just excellent fiscal responsibility. So we've been buying the stock at different price points. It kind of fluctuates between 9 and up to 13 a share. We believe it's a $14 to $17, even $22 a share stock if all planets align. But let's just say 14 to 17. And the dividend yield of $1.55 a share, or 14% yield, makes it very attractive to make money while we're waiting. Well, and we were figuring the company would take a few years, probably 3 to 6 years, to get their debt load down organically. Well, the price has been down over the last couple of weeks for a couple of reasons. One has to do with people shorting the stock. I won't get into that. That's a boring subject. But the next reason was because the company a couple of weeks ago had announced that they were possibly going to miss earnings expectations. So people were selling off, just kind of waiting. However, I want to be very clear. Some positions like Vanguard and Fidelity had actually increased their positions in this. Vanguard increased it by 16%. So significant holdings and institutional holdings, including multiple pensions around the country. Long story longer. They said they were going to probably miss their earnings. The stock was pushed down a little bit. However, last night they released earnings. They actually beat earnings expectations. So all things being wonderful, we expect the stock to be up this morning. But in fact, the stock was down about $2 a share, about 24% loss in the value of the stock. And here's why. Prior to the market's opening, someone, undoubtedly we don't know who, someone leaked to the press that the board last night had decided to eliminate the dividend that they pay and take the $100 million of excess money they have each year that they use to pay the dividends normally and simply apply that towards the debt and pay it down by mid-2021, so in about 2 years. So what that did, of course, this morning was crush the stock. It's down to about $6 a share. So I sent out an email telling everyone I was going to contact the company. And in fact, Lisa Hood is our contact there. She's a vice president of Consolidated, and she's a treasurer at Consolidated. So I want you to know when I'm reaching out to these people, I'm not talking to the janitor. We're talking to somebody in the C-suite who's got some insight for us. So I spoke with Lisa, determined what was going on, asked her some additional questions, and here's ultimately what you should know. This is a company that is in 23 states. It's growing its revenues. It is upgrading to the 5G network, a lot of which is being paid for by the federal government through a $20 billion grant that this company, Consolidated, received a significant portion of in order to make the changes. So they get to upgrade their company. This is like FP&L basically. When the hurricanes blow down the lines, FP&L isn't paying for that, right? You and I are, and of course the state of Florida is helping assist in some of that payment for these new poles. So long story longer, I have to ask this question. What has changed about the company that makes it an investment that we should leave? Should we stay or should we go, right? What the knack? Who is it? Should I stay or should I go now? Whoever it was, email me who wrote that in the 80s, who sang that in the 80s. So I'm the only people that it will adversely affect immediately will be those people who are relying on the income from this. Now, all of us were receiving income in the form of dividends, but there are some of us who are receiving income as part of our income necessity, so our investment strategy. So I will be pulling that list, seeing what the impact will be. I've already reached out to three of my analysts, to find a substitute for Consolidated, because if income is our primary motive, then income is what we need to seek. However, if income is not our primary, and nothing has changed about the company that makes us believe it's a bad investment, then we are going to stay invested in Consolidated. If you're in income and we need it for income, we'll shift. But if you do not need the income, then we are going to stay in it. And here's why. There is nothing that has changed except for one thing. The company has taken revenue that they would normally hand out to shareholders. They've taken it back and they're going to pay off debt. Now let me ask you a question. If you had the opportunity to go and spend money frivolously, I'm not going to say shareholders are frivolous, but let's say you could go buy anything you wanted, anytime you wanted, or you could pay your house off with that money and reduce your debt and be a better fiscally managed company. Which is the scenario that you think makes better sense for a company long term? So, income people, I'll be calling tomorrow after I get some feedback from my analysts looking for a substitution. I'm obviously tonight going to look for some things also. But more importantly, for those of us invested in Consolidated that do not need the income, there is nothing about the company that we need to shy away from or run away from. As a matter of fact, we need to embrace the fact that they are going to be paying off debt sooner rather than later, or a fiscally more adept company, and have the ability going forward to possibly even come back and raise an even higher dividend. That's it. We don't need the money. We're staying. We do need the money. We need to transition, and I'll let you know. I'll reach out to everybody then. If you have any questions, call, email me anytime. Thank you very much for everything, and stay the course. Nothing about the company has changed other than, for those of us longer term, it is a positive story.